Welcome everyone, my name is Jenny Harrison and on behalf of the Organisation Committee I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome you to the next session of the Future of Meetings. Our next presenter is Dr. Carina Kemp, who is the Director of E-Research at ARNET. Carina leads a team building digital infrastructures to support Australian researchers solve the world's greatest challenges. Carina has worked as a research scientist and geophysicist across academia, industry and government, and is passionate about innovation, empowering her team, as well as bridging the gap between IT and everything else. Her enduring interests include open data, data analytics, machine learning, HPC, communication of science, collaboration, and demonstrating leadership for women in science and technology. She holds a number of qualifications, including a PhD from the University of Sydney and a bachelor's degree in science from the University of New South Wales. Welcome, Carina.
Hi, my name is Dr. Carina Kemp and I am the Director of E-Research at ARNET. Thank you, Jenny, for your kind introduction. As the Director of E-Research, I lead the team at ARNET that's the front door for the research community to understand what ARNET does. Our role is to work with the research community, collaborate with the research community so they can leverage ARNET services, both the network, but the services on top of the network that enable collaboration and data sharing in the way that the research community needs now more than ever. In order to be able to get out in the research community and to let them know what we do, we present at a lot of conferences, we run workshops, we go out and meet researchers, all of those sorts of things to be able to spread the word about how they should be using the network. Obviously, that is quite challenging in 2020. In fact, we had to pivot quite early on in March to switch some conferences we were involved in from being in person to online. These were the CSIRO sponsored C3 DISC conference and the Research Data Alliance plenary. Both were supposed to be held in person in March in Melbourne. We managed to pivot and switch both of those conferences online in various formats. And ARNET sponsored those conferences and helped them use Zoom in its various formats to be able to get those communities still to meet. And what was really interesting was both of those conferences ended up having more participation virtually than they would have had in person. So that was amazing to see that jumping virtually, yes, it has its challenges, but enabled so much more accessibility to everyone. Now, that's interesting because we've since run other conferences and we've realized that we've almost doubled who we'd normally get. And some of them said, it's not even about, it's about the time. Can they spend the time traveling? Can they afford the conference? Can they afford the flights and accommodation? Even if we provide some conferences for free to enable the research community to come and see what we do, they still can't afford those flights. So I think it's really exciting to be here at this conference talking about the future of meetings, because I think it's so needed in the research community so we can continue to collaborate and engage now more than ever in these challenging times. So I'm going to talk to you today about what I think ARNET's place is in this. So we provide the network, we provide the technology to enable these virtual meetings. So what is really holding us back? What could the future look like? Okay. So ARNET's vision is of a globally networked data sharing ecosystem. Everything we do at ARNET is to enable the Australian research and education community to share data and collaborate. Today in this talk, I'm going to cover a few things. I'm going to talk about why researchers need to collaborate and how we have seen that collaboration grow. I'm going to talk to you a bit about who ARNET is today, if you're not familiar. And I'm going to talk about the growth of the internet. And lastly, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what, in my imagination, the future could look like. I'm extroverted. I like going out and meeting people. I like engaging with them. I'm struggling. Please think about all your extroverted friends out there. I'm really struggling because I can't come out. I can't have a beer with you. I can't come and shake your hand. So how can we think about getting the essence of those things that we love to do, which is on top of just listening to people talk at a conference? And so I want to talk to you about what my future could possibly look like. So Australia is critically dependent on networking because of two things. One, because of our location in the globe. We're a long way from a lot of the people we collaborate with. The second thing is how big Australia is in itself. We are very distributed. We have researchers working up in Cairns and Townsville in JCU, all the way down to Tasmania, then across to Curtin and our Western Australian universities, and then up to the Northern Territory and everywhere in between. So we need to work out how we can enable that research community to still collaborate with each other and discuss their results and all of those things. We know that the research community need to collaborate with themselves across institutions in Australia, but also internationally. This is quite an old graph, but it shows how much their collaboration in research articles and publications would accelerate into 2020. And I think now more than ever, we know that if you want to get your paper published in a high impact journal, you need to make sure you've got lots of diverse collaborators and international collaborators in that publication. We also know that then if you can get into these high impact journals, then it will help you accelerate your ability to get more funding. So it's really important that when we think about the future of meetings, we think about, well, why are we actually having those meetings? And those meetings are so our researchers can collaborate, in my world, and deliver their amazing research because they're tapping into these collaborators both in Australia and internationally. So who is ARNET today? So we are a national community. We're a not-for-profit owned by all of the universities and CSIRO. We turned 30 last year, so 30 years of internet in Australia. But we connect the research and education community, but we actually connect the whole ecosystem, not just the universities. We connect schools, we connect publicly funded research organisations like Geoscience Australia and the Bureau of Meteorology, as well as CSIRO, who's a shareholder. We connect teaching hospitals and medical research institutes. We connect the cultural community like galleries, libraries, museums. And we also connect instruments like the Square Kilometre Array precursors in Western Australia. So we actually connect that ecosystem, everything around research and education. But we don't just connect domestically as well. We enable the Australian research and education community to then connect into our global community of research and education networks. And that's for our internet, for our research and education internet, but also we collaborate on other things like EduRoam, cybersecurity, and research engagement to enable us to be able to communicate and collaborate with the international research organisations and disciplines that are growing. And so here's a map of the international research and education network. So you can see we've got bandwidth going all around the globe. And this is a network that runs parallel to the normal internet to enable us to leverage a different type of network, a high bandwidth, specially designed network just for research and education. And bandwidth matters, all right? So this graph up the top shows sort of the normal day-to-day internet moving across an area of the network. The blue line though shows some research traffic, research data traffic, right? Where they actually managed to leverage the bandwidth that we offer in a research and education network to move a large amount of research data over quickly. And why do I talk to you about this? Well, it'll become clearer later, but when we need research, we need high bandwidth to be able to move research data around, but we also need high bandwidth to do video conferencing, to do virtual reality, to do all these other things. And at the moment, we can offer really good bandwidth to the point that you can move 100 terabytes in just over a day across a research and education network like ARNET. But on a normal ISP, on the commercial internet, it could take you more than a week. So it's really important to have bandwidth and have this special research and education network that enables us to do the things we need to do. So what does bandwidth really mean for the future of meetings? Well, here you can see my home bandwidth, and I'm not on the ARNET connection, right? Because I'm at home. Lots of us are at home now, and I've got pretty good download speeds. It's not mirrored in the upload speeds. I'm normally pretty good on my Zoom meetings day to day, but if I've got 1.5 megabits per second needed, and my husband's on a video call, and my 3 kids are watching Netflix in high definition, it does put a bit of pressure on it. And here's an interesting article here in the conversation, was written in April, about how can we actually prevent internet congestion during the lockdown? How can we actually get the internet to handle lockdown? So I think the internet did handle lockdown pretty well. So since the beginning of 2020, ARNET has hosted on our Zoom infrastructure over 10 million meetings. This graph here shows the daily Zoom meetings hosted by ARNET over the period of time. And you can see the cycles of the weeks and the cycles of the main lockdown period across the country, and it growing again, and almost more than 100,000 a day in its peak. But we managed. There was a few tentative times when we were worried we won't be able to do it, but we still are on Zoom almost every day, or WebEx, or Google Meet, or whatever your organization decides. But we're all on video conferencing a lot of the time now, and it's working. Because the internet has grown over the years to enable it to happen, right? So back in 2010, a 1 gigabit per second internet connection for an institution was a normal. Now we've got institutions getting 100 gigs per second, 100 gigabits per second internet connections. With internet traffic growing generally at 25% per year. And you can see here, this is the ARNET growth since 2010. It's been normalized for confidentiality reasons, but we can see that over the years, it is growing almost exponentially. And this article here shows that we're also working on the technology to enable that. So this is from researchers at University of Melbourne who've designed a new chip that is going to enable us to be able to leverage the fibers in the ground to get better bandwidth out of those fibers. So I guess the technology's there. We've got the bandwidth. We've got it all happening. So we're all on Zoom every day, like the Brady Bunch. Who would have thought the Brady Bunch were actually on Zoom back then? And we're handling it mostly. I don't know whether we're handling it mentally, but we're getting there. So what else is happening around? So virtual reality. Now, I'm sure we'll hear from a lot of examples of fabulous virtual reality throughout this conference. And this is a great example from an article from that Ben Loveridge wrote, who's from the University of Melbourne, where he attended very early on this year a virtual reality educators in VR conference. And you can see there he is having a bit of a selfie. I tried this. I was going to try and do for this talk a bit of a video of me trying out VR. But I miss seeing the faces, right? I miss seeing the faces. So I want to see everyone's expressions, but then I also kind of want to be in 3D. So can we do that? Well, this is an article written in 2016 talking about how virtual reality will require real infrastructure. I think we have that real infrastructure in the network, but we also need edge computing and data center hubs and all sorts of stuff to really enable it so that we can start getting to more lifelike VR, like this example here, which was in a IEEE tech talk. So for me, the future isn't Zoom. It isn't Zoom like this, but maybe it's some virtual reality where we can actually see our people, our faces. You know, I'm an extrovert, I need to see your face, but I also want to be immersed and I want to be able to shake hands with you and I want to be able to have a beer, maybe virtually. You know, how can we get from, wow, we're seeing ourselves in video now, how can we get ourselves to actually engaging and getting to the point where we're sort of starting to participate again in some of the things that we did do at a conference when we were networking. That's what I want to see, and that's my future. And I put to you that the bandwidth is there. We've got a lot of the technology in place to be able to enable us to do it. We've got to start jumping in and testing out these technologies, thinking about running a virtual meeting with our teammates actually in virtual reality, or at least augmented reality. And we'll see where we go from there. So thank you very much for listening.